The 2021 NBA Draft has now come and gone, and there is certainly a lot to unpack. Things started off according to plan, but very early on we saw plenty of surprises quickly follow suit that surprised pretty much everyone watching. Some of these surprises were good, and some of them were bad, and honestly that's the beauty of the draft itself, because it really is impossible to predict truly how teams will go about the process. With that being said, that brings us to the topic of today's video, where we'll be discussing the biggest winners and losers of the night based on the decisions the teams made. Obviously, none of these players have even stepped on the court for their teams yet, but this is just a way to gauge how things seem to stack up at the moment, and plenty can change over time. Before we start though, it turns out about 60% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. We'll start things off with the winners of the night, and the first and most obvious one, in my opinion, was the Houston Rockets. The Rockets started the night off by selecting Jalen Green second overall, who most view as the best and most dynamic scorer in the whole draft. Green's explosive, he's a confident shot creator who can make difficult shots look easy and pull from anywhere on the floor, and pairing him with Kevin Porter Jr. in the backcourt is going to be very fun for a long time. But the Rockets' night certainly did not end there. They then traded up to the 16th pick to select Alperen Sengun, who may not be a name everyone is familiar with, but overseas, his ridiculous skill level was on full display, with his post moves down low, his passing ability and court vision for a center, and his touch around the rim make him an incredibly intriguing prospect. Then, even after that, the Rockets still had 2 more first-round picks to use, and they went on to hit home runs with both of them by snagging Usman Garuba and Josh Christopher back-to-back to close out an incredibly impressive night. Garuba's defensive versatility and basketball IQ had him in the conversation to be taken in the lottery for a large part of the season, and still definitely has the talent to justify that, and Christopher's natural scoring ability will add depth to the team in the backcourt, and will honestly make them a fun team to follow next year because of all this young talent coming together. The next winner of the night is the Golden State Warriors, who had a night that seems to have split much of the fan base, but I personally was a big fan of the picks that they made. A lot of the Warriors fan base was hoping that the team would package the 7th and 14th picks in a trade to acquire a big name, but since the opportunity never presented itself, they came out and just as well as they possibly could given the circumstances. Starting with their pick at 7, they went with the best player available in Jonathan Kuminga, who I honestly was a bit shocked fell that far. I've discussed him plenty in previous videos, but despite that, the fact is that he's quite raw as a basketball player, but he also has so much potential and could possibly have the highest ceiling in the draft, so the fact that he fell out of the top 5 is a steal for the Warriors. If the Warriors were going to select players with these picks, then their objective should have been to select the players with the most potential that will garner the most value in future potential trades, and because of this potential, that is exactly what Kuminga brings for them. They then got another absolute steal of a pick at 14, when they selected Moses Moody, who I believe should have gone top 10. He's much more ready to help them now as a reliable 3-and-D player, and offensively, he can provide so much more than just spot-up shooting like most typical 3-and-D players. Next, the final big winner I'll be discussing today is the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets started the day by adding a much-needed big man in Mason Plumlee from the Pistons, in a trade where they literally got him almost for free, only having to give up a late second-round pick while also getting a second-round pick in return along with Plumlee, and adding him gave them more flexibility to take some swings during the draft itself. They then had pick number 11, and with it they chose James Bouknight, who is a pure bucket getter who can legitimately heat up in a hurry and score points in bunches. He's another player that I saw as top 10 talent, so getting him just outside of the top 10 is great value for them, but again, their night did not end there. They then traded up to the pick number 19 in exchange for a future pick, and with it they selected Kai Jones, who is a big man with so much athleticism, potential defensive prowess, and shooting potential to possibly develop into a perfect modern-day big man. Jones is definitely still a raw prospect at the moment, and his skills will need a few years to develop, but as I said earlier, the team got Mason Plumlee to play ahead of him and take pressure off of him to perform right away, and with Plumlee clearly not being a part of their long-term plans, they can move on from him